RT International. Now, the US envoy to the United Nations says that Washington's patience with North Korea is not unlimited and that Pyongyang appears to be begging for war. Nikki Haley made the comments during an emergency Security Council meeting earlier. That appeared to end in deadlock as the US dismissed possible plans for de-escalating the crisis. Well, with more details, we can speak with Samira Khan. For us, she's in Washington and keeping across events there. Samira, good evening. What else was said then during the Security Council meeting?
Well, once again, the U.S. has threatened North Korea with war, saying that Kim Jong-un is begging for war. Let's take a look.
To the members of the Security Council, I must say, enough is enough. Nuclear powers understand their responsibilities. Kim Jong-un shows no such understanding. His abusive use of missiles and his nuclear threats show that he is begging for war. War is never something the United States wants. We don't want it now. But our country's patience is not unlimited.
What we've heard from Haley is nothing new, actually. Only yesterday, the U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said that Washington will use any means necessary to defend itself from North Korea. Washington has been threatening military action for weeks, and the rhetoric has been growing stronger and stronger since the beginning of August, when Trump threatened DPRK with fire and fury. Thankfully, it doesn't go beyond threats. But at the same time, Washington hasn't really proposed a viable solution, except for sanctions, which hasn't been effective. Russia and China, however, have been calling for North Korea to return to dialogue.
A comprehensive settlement to the nuclear and other issues plaguing the Korean Peninsula can be arrived at solely through political and diplomatic channels. We reiterate our readiness to help this process via the implementation of the initiative proposed by Russia and China.
A comprehensive settlement to the nuclear and other issues plaguing the Korean Peninsula can be arrived at solely through political and diplomatic channels. We reiterate our readiness to help this process via the implementation of the initiative proposed by Russia and China. China and Russia have proposed an initiative for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. It is practical and feasible and aimed at easing the tensions and preventing further escalation.
Moscow and Beijing has proposed a roadmap for settling the crisis, calling for a freeze on North Korea's nuclear tests and U.S. and South Korea's drills. The double freeze initiative for North Korea has been proposed by China and Russia, which would require North Korea to stop its nuclear and ballistic missile tests, and in return, the U.S. and South Korea would stop their military drills. This is a move that Washington considers to be offensive.
The idea that some have suggested a so-called freeze for freeze is insulting.
So it looks like for now the situation is in a deadlock, at least until Washington decides that threats and sanctions are counterproductive.
OK, thanks, Samira. That was Samira Khan for us in Washington. Well, we can discuss this a bit further too, because we're joined now by Dr. Ryan Mason. He's an expert on international relations from the University of East Anglia. Good evening to you. Welcome to RT. What did you make of Nikki Haley's response to the Russian and Chinese initiative, the so-called two-track solution, saying that it was offensive?
Well, I think that's fairly understandable, given that the US position is certainly not one which allows for North Korean so-called provocations to be placed in the same context as military training drills and diplomatic pressure applied by the US and its allies. So Nikki Haley, for example, certainly can't accept a situation where North Korean nuclear tests and missile tests are effectively understood and recognized by the international community as being equivalent to US, Japanese, South Korean and Australian drills which relate to the security of the Korean Peninsula.
Do you think they're going to find some sort of middle ground at this meeting? Because it does seem like it is in stalemate at the moment, because on one hand you've got the US and then you have China and Russia. Do you see a way forward here?
I think it's unlikely for there to be a sudden breakthrough, again, given both the regional balance of power and the regional rivalry involved. US relations with both Russia and China are obviously not particularly close, and they're essentially in rival relationships with both of those states in the East Asia region. So whilst both China and Russia would like to see North Korea de-escalate its activities, neither side of those great powers are willing to do so at the cost of effectively facilitating US foreign policy, and the reverse is also absolutely the case. So it's hard to see, really, unless in the longer term the US, China and Russia have a strategic plan to, for example, economically, in some respects, liberalise North Korea and take advantage of resources in North Korea and somehow neo-colonialise that peninsula. Unless that was taken place, in the short term, it's difficult to see a way forward or a means or an opening that would allow that to take place.
Washington again threatening sort of nuclear action, essentially saying we are getting closer to this point. What are the chances that they will actually do that, considering the consequences that could happen?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as you pointed out, the consequences are pretty dire. So again, any military action would only come, I think, either in response to an actual military attack by North Korea. You have to bear in mind that for all of the testing of both nuclear and missile capabilities, there has not been an attempt by North Korea to strike Japan, South Korea, or to strike, as it previously threatened, the waters around Guam. So unless North Korea were to up its level of provocation to that actual military engagement, I think it's unlikely that the